traveling, I don't have my normal little setup where I play something off my iPad and so on and so forth. So we're not really talking about girls, but we are talking about sexuality and conspiracy. And, where to begin? First of all, we don't really know who's Bubba. Okay. It's, Bubba might be Bill Clinton, but Epstein's brother came out and said it's not Bill Clinton. So it's someone else. It might be some Death Star billionaire. It might be a lot of different people, but let's all calm down. Okay, so this morning, I've been listening to a lot of people on TikTok. Probably the best content I've seen is a young woman named Angie Marie. And the first thing I want to say is make no mistake about this. We are dealing with treason. I haven't seen anybody use that word before. Now, I brought up the word treason whenever they pierced his right ear in Butler, PA. He is the good slave, okay? Most likely Bubba is somebody from Death Star, okay? So your image for all this is the President of the United States sucking on Bubba's member. Like, if that doesn't... the big feud between the Jonathan Greenblatts and the Nick Fuenteses and the Ben Shapiros is forever. I don't think it's Bill Clinton. I think it's going to come out that Bubba is some sort of billionaire, big contributor to AIPAC. And so it's all about Death Star, people. It's all about Death Star. The other thing I can tell you is the best way to think of Epstein, as I was listening to this young woman, her handle is Angie... _ Marie or something like that. I think she's Palestinian, and she's doing a great job of going through the emails very much like a prosecuting attorney, okay? And my takeaway from that is Epstein is really operating like Judah Benjamin. You don't know who Judah Benjamin is. Judah Benjamin is the Secretary of State of the Confederacy during the Civil War. It's very close relations to the Rothschilds. He negotiated with both France and Britain to possibly come in on the war. The reason they didn't come in on the war is because they knew that they would get their ass kicked. General Lee said in the Appomattox courthouse that I've said this many, many times on here, that they knew that they were going to lose. The Confederacy there was no way you can have 22 million people fight 6 million people and win. Like it's the Gone with the Wind thing, right? We have slaves, cotton, and arrogance. That's Rhett Butler. He said, we're going to war and we don't have a cannon factory. Okay? So the way that the South thought that they were going to win is to bring in foreign troops. That's who Epstein is, people. Okay, the other big takeaway I'm just going to do a stream of consciousness here. You're going to hear this phrase come up where Epstein says, I have to get my marching orders. Now, most people are going to think his marching orders come from maybe Netanyahu. No. It's weirder than that. The theme today is sex and conspiracy. We're basically rounding off the conspiracy for you. We have a conspiracy to commit treason. Trump has committed treason. I don't know what the laws are for treason. Epstein's marching orders probably come from, wait for it, the Rothschilds. Really? Really? How are you going to tie that together? You're going to get this nebulous web of all this money and intelligence and everything that flows around Epstein. Now, first of all, Epstein's boss is Wexner. And I don't know why it's so hard for everybody to hear that, but there's a guy out in Columbus, no one even talks about what's going to happen. Are they going to arrest him? Right? So we have these emails that shows that Epstein was at Mar-a-Lago through the first Trump presidency, okay? I remember this very, very well, and I was like, what the fuck? I remember seeing a picture I don't know what, it was magazine, it was like some mainstream thing. Okay, Roman Abramovich is the guy that suggested to Yeltsin to pick Putin. Okay? There were all these oligarchs that ran Russia. Abramovich was probably the wealthiest of them. And it was being run like a mafioso operation, okay? And Abramovich turned to Yeltsin and said, the whole thing is going to go up in flames if we can't maintain the Russian state. Okay. So this is where we got Putin from. If you remember, he was just like a little slightly squirrely looking apparatchik, right? Whenever he first became president. I've said this on here many, many times. He famously sat around the table with the oligarchs the next morning when he was elected president, and I forget which one. I think the one that moved, not Brzezinski, but it sounds like Brzezinski or something like that, turned to him and said, "Mr. Putin, this is what we need you to do." And Putin looked back with his James Bond face and said, "This is what Russia needs you to do." And that changed everything, okay? Abramovich then moves to England and is best friends with the Rothschild who's dating Natalie Portman. I forget his first name. He's a good-looking young guy. You got to be pretty good-looking to date Natalie Portman. The first Thanksgiving, the Abramovich yacht, which is like a fucking frigate, is at Mar-a-Lago. People, no matter how big you think this conspiracy is, it's bigger. It will challenge your understanding of how the world works, how politics works, how finance works, how all of it. I do it all day. I won't even tell you, how on your iPhones on Sunday, it throws up, I think at 9 o'clock, how many hours you've spent in the last week on your screen. I won't even tell you what my number was because it's not healthy. But I sort of know that this is a conspiracy. I can make connections between Abramovich and Epstein and Wexner and stuff like that. I don't even know how the fuck it works. I have no idea how this works. Okay? But I'm going to tell you right now, the Linda finger. Trump is done. Trump is done like Jefferson Davis, for another Civil War reference. Do you remember how they found Jefferson Davis? Do you remember this in 4th grade? Jefferson Davis was captured crossing the Rio Grande in a dress. So no matter who Bubba is, the image of Donald Trump on his knees, that's never going to go away. He is so compromised that he is, filleting other members with the broad meaning of the word member. That will never go away. There's some really cute little songs being created by various people. Let's just take a second and do finance for a minute. Remember that the Trump presidency isn't really about Trump, right? They brought him in because he could win the election, but the Trump presidency is really about J.D. Vance, and it's really about Peter Thiel, and it's really about Palantir, right? So the real operation here is to have the U.S. government replaced by the Technological Republic. I've done a lot of work on that. You can go get that book. Now, Peter Thiel and Alex Karp sort of hint at, if anybody fucks with us, we'll use the kill chain. That's how fucking serious this is, people. This is treason. Now, they didn't prosecute the people that ran the Civil War for treason. If you go watch the movie with Daniel Day-Lewis, there's a good scene of Grant and Lincoln sitting on a porch, and they're talking about the war, and it's obviously winding down, and it's bloody, and Lincoln just says, if Jefferson Davis, leaves the country, I don't really care. What are we going to do this time? This is totally, all the wars since 9/11 are driven by this. Millions of people have been unalived because of this treasonous activity. Millions. 1.7 million in the Ukraine. Over 100,000 civilians in Gaza. That's just the most recent. Libya, Iran, Syria is now run by Al-Qaeda. I don't know if the algorithm's going to like that, but that's the fucking truth. This is like, let's all calm down. So that's the scary part of conspiracy, is you get this sensation that you don't know which way's up. But on the other hand, the sooner you come to the understanding that it's a conspiracy and that you don't know which way is up, the better you can come to grips with what to do. Okay? I think we're going to have 20 years of unpacking this. Right? We've been talking about the JFK assassination since 1963. I think this is going to go on for over a decade of unpacking all this. This is so serious that sitting members of Congress will be in. There's actually nobody to prosecute it. Right? The FBI director is fucking an Israeli girl half his age who sings bad country songs. Tim Dillon does skits about it. This is how screwed up this is. There's nobody to come to the rescue. So let's think of that for a minute. Because now we have to get into the really ugly shit. Because this is called sex and conspiracy. Okay, so the Bubba thing is not going to go away, right? That's the smoking gun. Okay, that's not a very good pun, but we're going to go with it. I heard a woman read about Virginia, 13-year-old Virginia, tied up, beaten by Trump. I mean, I couldn't even listen to it. The way sex and conspiracy go together is because they're like the Diddy thing, and like, I don't know if nobody talks about this, but I've heard people say that certain men would show up when Michael Jackson was like 10 and 11 years old, and quote, he wouldn't be able to perform for. Okay, I just got the misinformation thing. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to stop right here so that I can capture this and put it on Substack. Okay? So I'm going to be right back. Well, it may not let me go live then. All right, I'll just finish with this. The sexuality is the cover. Now, to prepare for this morning, I looked at two things. First of all, having breakfast. There's nothing on Fox News about this. Nothing. Which implies that the Murdoch family is a big part of this. Okay? See how this works? It's not even on MSNBC. This is the biggest thing that has happened since Jefferson Davis ran across the Rio Grande at the end of the war. And it's not even on American media. It is all pervasive. So the sexuality is cover because so I'm from Pennsylvania. Like for 24 months, you'd go to a bar and people would bring up Joe Paterno and Sandusky and people would like be on the edge of a fist fight. Take that times 100. That's what America's about to go through. Okay? The Catholic Church. There were 100 priests in the Pittsburgh diocese accused of PDF. The sexual blackmail thing makes it unspeakable. I think something worse is going to come out about Trump other than the Bubba. I've always thought this. I think this thing with him and his daughter, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, is so weird and so creepy. And he said it to this young woman, Virginia, who's 13 years old, that he wanted her because she looks like his daughter. I think I'm going to go 50-50 on it. That we'll wake up and there'll be a possibility that there's incest involved. Now hold the thought. Jimmy Dore good comedian, good in-depth journalist, interviewed someone I've purposely never talked about. This is why I have our friend from our Gothic, Jessica Lange, behind me. Jimmy Dore interviewed Kathy O'Brien. If you held something to my head and said, tell me your deepest conspiracy, not Rothschilds and shit like that, that's old hat. It's what came from Kathy O'Brien. And it was about 15 years ago that I saw some of her videos, and I'll just go through it real quick. You can go see the interview with Jimmy Dore. She was from a family of multi-generational, horrible, very bad sexual activities, which then got connected to the government, which then got connected to intelligence agencies. Okay? I'm just going to say this real quick. I knew a woman who went through that with her father. I'd say it's 50-50. We're going to find out that applies to Trump. Okay? You can go watch the interview. She wrote a book called, and this is what I want to really present here on a Sunday, because this violence against women, and now there's some other things involved, but this violence against women, I think there's 1,000 people ready to testify against the Epstein operation. Kathy O'Brien wrote a book called The Trance, not Trans, Trance Formation of America. We are all part of a kind of MK Ultra operation of terror, of conspiracy, of Elon Musk is part of the Trump team and then not part of the Trump team, and then he takes over Twitter, and then he goes to Israel, and then he goes to Auschwitz with Ben Shapiro. We are just constantly bombarded with all this stuff. We don't know which way is up, okay? And now that we can see that there is a conspiracy, it is massive, it is all pervasive, it is treason. It's not left versus right. It's not pink versus blue. America is run by a conspiracy. I'm the only guy on the internet who told you what happened at Butler, okay? When something goes by your ear that weighs 55 grams and is 3,200 feet per second, you don't go like this. You go like this if you get stung by a horsefly, okay? You should probably take some time and go listen to Kathy. It's not, when you start to get into it, you're going to hear about Clinton. She says that Clinton is bi, as was HW, as is Bush Jr. There was a prostitute that worked in his. Once you go into this, you'll be like, oh my God. She explains that Clinton worked for Bush. Which, if you really think about like Mena, Arkansas, and the whole thing, and the drugs and everything, that makes more sense than anything Alex Jones has ever said. Okay? This is going to take down like the whole government of America, like at least since JFK. And it's all orchestrated with sexuality. And nobody explains it better to you than Kathy O'Brien. One of her videos, which I don't know if you can find it anymore, this is the most disturbing fucking thing I've ever heard. And I think I might just wind down with this because they're going to try to turn me off. And then I won't be able to save it. I won't be able to put it on Substack. She was rescued by either a CIA or an FBI handler who like discovered her and like got her out of it. And they program through these things by like the most horrible trauma you can think of. So she said that they carved a smiley face on my private parts. I'll just say that. And there's just a YouTube video that's like this, and she's just riding along in like a SUV with her husband, and there's a journalist in the back that goes, "They did what?" "Yeah, they carved something into my thing." So they drive to a gynecologist, and in the video, she gets on the table and puts her legs in the stirrups, and the gynecologist like puts the scope on her and goes, "Oh my God, they carved a smiley face onto your genitalia." And then show a picture of it. She has never been sued for libel by anybody in 35 years because it's all true. It is the most disturbing fucking thing. I've never, I mean, I know about 9/11 like probably as good as anybody. This is more fucking disturbing when you unpack this and see how this all really works. One of the things that will happen is that the boomers will become completely disconnected from reality. The boomers, like, I'm going to go home and my dad's going to talk about this, and he's going to somehow make this out that Trump is coordinating all this, right? And I'm going to be like, "No, Dad. No, Trump doesn't run the conspiracy. The conspiracy runs Trump. He won't be able to get... those people still can't get over Lee Harvey Oswald. They still think that Lee Harvey Oswald shot a stupid Eastern European rifle left-handed out the fucking window in Dallas. They just can't deal with this. And that's why everything is crazy in America. All the policies are crazy. Tim Dillon talks about this probably more articulate than anybody. Everything the boomers are doing is crazy because they don't know that they're living in a conspiracy. They think it's still 1962 and there's lots of jobs out there for the kids. But that's over. That's over. This is how everything is going to get handed off to the millennials and Gen Z. Because my mother, we had it's like a trauma in our family, and we sort of think that trauma triggered my mom's dementia. That's what's going to happen to the boomers. They're not even going to know like what the fuck to say, to think about anything when this starts to come out. There's some concern that there's maybe 5 or 6 companies that are worth $20 trillion. There's some concern that maybe they're not. I would put that in the column of conspiracy as well. Everything is like the Overlook Hotel. Everything is a Stanley Kubrick movie. And now as these facts and figures come out of who controls what, it's going to be... I'll say this as like something positive. Like, it might be religion, it might be charitable work, it might be that you run marathons, whatever it is that keeps you sort of centered through all this. Like, you're going to go watch the thing with Jimmy Dore, and like, it's going to ruin your day. And Catherine O'Brien, you're going to have a bad week. However, as this shit comes out about Trump, you're going to be like, okay, now we see how it works, right? Now we can do something about this. The other thing that I looked at this morning in prep for this, I watched like the first half of the Jimmy Dore thing with Catherine O'Brien, and most of it that she had said I had seen many times a long time ago. The other thing I read was the first couple pages of a book written back in, I think, in 91 by Camille Paglia. It's a book called Sexual Personae. And it is a completely politically incorrect view of sexuality. I would suggest that on, whatever this is, November, whatever, with the Bubba allegations coming out and Trump is totally compromised and these stories of these young women and their violence against them, that everybody needs to go read that chapter of that book. Because it is the most salient thing that has been written like in the last 50 years. You can't get away from that book, from that first. I don't care if you're a committed Christian, evangelical, Catholic, Orthodox Jew, unbeliever, spiritual, like free thinker, whatever. When you deal with these issues of sexuality, the only person that got it right in the last 50, 60 years is Camille Paglia. And how could it be that in the age of feminism and equal rights and all of this, that there's so much violence against women? She explains it. We all joke on Twitter about how the Grindr app goes down whenever the Republicans get together. That's also part of it. So this will go on for free on Substack. I don't need to pile on here. I'm the guy that told you that Trump is part of a conspiracy. They pierced his ear, like in the Bible, to show that he was the good slave. And he also sucks dick. That's how bad this is. I mean, politically, you want to think about this? The President of the United States, through either coercion or just his sexual appetites, does sexual activity based on conspiracy. We'll never be able to live this down. Our kids are going to have to study this in 4th grade. Our 8-year-olds, right? Who are already subject to pornography, right? Pornography is just all pervasive in our society. Anybody has access to it. A 5-year-old boy can see Lonnie Barbie with 3 linebackers and shit, right? From a little age. It's all part of them. We're all living through the transformation of America. Go listen to Jimmy Dore, listen to Catherine. You can listen to Catherine Austin Fitts too. Kathy O'Brien. Take a peek at Sexual Personae. There is something liberating about knowing the truth, right? The truth shall set us free. There is something better about knowing this now. I mean, as awful as this is going to be going forward, we're going to see a sitting president of the United States prosecuted for treason. They may not say treason to get started, but as it rolls out, you will understand that America is really not a functioning democracy. America really is occupied. It really is the Death Star. It's on Substack. Have a nice weekend.